Thanks to our Patreon members for helping to make this episode possible, and we're now available on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find more information at the links below. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another fireside story in which I relate and then discuss the meaning of a selection from parables or philosophical writings from around the world and from all times. Today I want to do a look at one that is both in the Zen and the Daoist tradition. Of course, they're closely linked historically and culturally. And it's about the ox or horse stuck in the alleyway, depending on which version you're reading. It originally occurs in Chuang Tzu, a collection of Daoist writings, which is a simplified version, but there's more complex versions that you can find in different places. In the version I originally heard, and the one I like the best, I think, is the one I'll relate. And so a crowd is gathered in a marketplace because an ox is stuck in an alley. Sometimes this is a horse, by the way. In this case, it's an ox. An ox is stuck in an alley. And nobody knows what to do. They can't get it unblocked from the alley. And so along comes a strong man, and he looks at the ox, and he runs up behind it, and he gives it a mighty shove. And the ox kicks him and knocks him backwards. Still not moved. So now more people are gathered, more people are concerned. So then the farmer who owns it gets frustrated, and he runs up with his stick, and he beats it, and he hits it and hits it and hits it, trying to drive it forward with a stick. And the ox just does not respond and kicks him and sends him flying. Finally, an acrobat comes along and says, well, I'll leap over him and I'll pull him through from the other side. So he runs and he leaps over the ox, and as he gets over the top of it, the ox raises its head and smashes him. And so he goes flying, and so nobody can get it out. And then at the back of the crowd, a young person notices that here comes the Daoist master, Chuang Tzu, or some master. There's different masters that are mentioned. So a Daoist master comes rolling along. And the crowd says, look, he can help us. He can help us. Oh, master, what should we do? This ox is stuck in an alleyway. What can we do? The strong man has tried to push it. The peasant has hit it with a stick. The acrobat has tried to go over the top. Nothing seems to work. And so the Daoist master looks at the crowd, and he looks at the ox stuck in the alleyway. He ponders for a moment, and then he walks further down the street to another alleyway and turns into it and continues on his way. This is the parable of the ox or horse stuck in the alleyway. Now, what does this tell us? Well, there's several layers to this, of course, as there generally are in these stories. And one, what I really like about it is this notion of just going, it's not really my problem, right? Like I don't need to go down that alleyway. I can just go to another alleyway. And that, right, just that recognition of, I'm not worried about this, doesn't seem to, but there's another alley right over there. The fact that everybody else has gathered and decided this is this big, huge problem does not convince the Daoist master or the Zen master that this is in fact a problem at all, at least for them, or at least for most people. And so the excitement of the crowd and all of that doesn't bend his mind or change his direction or concern him, change his concerns on what he wants to be interested in. And so that's often how this is presented. Go the easy way, woo way, don't have to interfere. Like what's the simple path here? And so that's one certainly accurate. This is nothing wrong with reading it there, but there's also another element of this that I really like, and that is in the more complex tellings that different people see the problem as a version of what they're good at or who they are. So if you're a strong person, the problem that is presented to you is one that needs strength. And if you're an acrobat, the problem that's presented to you is one that needs acrobatics. And if you're a peasant, the problem is one that needs to be driven with a stick. And the notion that not only do we perceive problems or concerns or things that might not actually be all that important to us, that we kind of get tricked by the crowd and the noise and the excitement into being involved in something that really has nothing to do with us and in no way interferes with our lives or our path, as it were. There's also the notion that, when we do have something, we look at it and we see it through these very particular lenses. And it's the lens of Who am I? What am I good at? This is the kind of approach this problem needs, regardless of the problem, right? So it doesn't matter that this is probably a problem that's not going to be soluble by strength. If you're a strong person, or if you're a strong man, then you're going to say, well, I'll be strong. I'm going to apply force to this. For me, it's like given any problem, my first response is, well, let's study it, right? Like let's learn some more about this, and it's often this is just not helpful, right? It seems like it should be helpful, and people who love to study things feel like studying and gaining knowledge and gaining insight should help. Now, it might make you feel better, but it doesn't necessarily help solve the problem. It might, but it might not. And then people who are highly organized and very neat, you can watch them approach things, and the first thing they want to do is like make order, right? Let's tidy this up and make order. Or people who are obsessed with money and are very focused on money and maybe have a lot of money, they'll think, oh, okay, well, we'll apply money to this problem. Like, this is a problem that we'll hire someone to pull the ox out of there. This is a problem that needs money. And those kinds of mental biases and mental focuses blind us to seeing, as the idea of the Taoist master is seeing the world as it is, seeing the world in its natural order, and recognizing that some of this has nothing to do with us. None of our capacities may actually be relevant. They may not respond in any way to what we need or what we have, to our capacities or abilities or our desires, right? All these things may not, in fact, impact in any way, but it's so hard to let go of them. And this even works by extension to the notion that when we look at the world, we imagine that other people are more or less like us and more or less look at the world the way we do. It's a very natural, normal human notion, even though, of course, we know this is absolutely not the case. I mean, the evidence here is perfectly clear that different people have different desires and different goals, and they're searching. They have different oxes stuck in different alleys, right? And so their alley that their ox is stuck in may not be the alley that your ox is stuck in. You may not even have an ox. You may not have an alley, right? But we see people and we think, oh, well, this person must think this way or see these things this way or feel this way, even though all the evidence, and of which there is a stupendous amount, is that humanity occurs on a bell curve. And for somebody who thinks money is important, a lot of the people who just don't care about money. And it's hard for both parties to really figure out what the heck the other person is up to, because they're just like, hey, I don't care about money, or I don't care about strength. I'm not interested in strength. I'm interested in music. I like music. So let's see if what's music have to teach us about this. And people are like, what are you talking about? What are you interested in music for? That doesn't do anything for anybody. And it's like, well, because I like music. And then people who really love music, like myself, I've met people who say, I just never listen to music. I'm just not interested in it. And I'm like, wow. That's a thing. You can be a person who's not interested in music. And our tendency is to then say, oh, well, there's something wrong with this person, right? There's some limitation that they have, or they've overlooked something, that they're bad people in some way, or they're inaccurate, or they don't understand the world, or something is wrong with them, as opposed to recognizing that, oh, well, some people, they just don't care about music. And that as hard as it is to imagine for somebody who loves music, like, well, there you go. Like, some people don't read books. I mean, I find this absolutely just unbelievable, actually, to tell you the truth. How do you do this? And I was talking to someone, and they said they were going to do this New Year's thing where I think I mentioned this, where they have to do 70 hard or 30 hard or something. It's about but the first thing they said you had to do was every day you had to read like 10 pages of a book or 20 pages of a book. And I just started laughing. I thought, well, that's hilarious. That's hard? No, that's just normal. Like, how do you read less than that? How could you ever get through a day without reading at least, 20 pages? I think it happens because, life happens. And then I'm like, oh, well, that's horrible. I don't want that to happen again. But some people, they just don't care. Or, some people love to run, and a lot of people are like, I'm not interested in running. For me, instance, I'm not interested in running. I see people running, and I wonder, why are they doing that? They seem happy, so good on them. And yet, so we know this, right? So this parable in some ways tells us at least two things that we absolutely already know, that a lot of problems that we get sucked into have nothing to do with us, and it's a waste of time and attention. We ought not do that. And yet, we continually look at that ox and try to figure out what to do about it, rather than just going, there's an ox stuck in that alley. I'll just go to the next alley. And also, we continuously have this tendency to want to apply whatever we're good at, our outlook, our approaches to everything, even though this is clearly wrong-headed. And conversely, we like to see, or not conversely, no, be associated to that would be the notion that we like to imagine that other people are more or less like us, when it's not that they're radically different, it's not that they're aliens, but again, that just because the things we like or the things we appreciate or the things we think are important or seem obvious to us, we just imagine that it's obvious to everybody else. And yet, again, this is just clearly not the case. And it's not that people don't come in groups and aren't sortable and all this, but people recur on bell curves, a lot of bell curves. And so there's this huge variation. And yet we want to pretend like there isn't. And that if people who deviate from us, of course, we're the standard, are somehow wrong or an error. Now, it's not that they might be an error, they might be wrong in some ways, but it's as a first assumption, it's not that healthy, not that helpful and healthy of an outlook. And so here's a very seeming simple, again, Daoist parable that presents hey, I see a problem. I don't need to address this problem. I'm just going to move along, which is very Taoist. This is why Taoism is frustrating for people, because they're like, but shouldn't you help and all this? And the Taoists are like, yeah, no, that doesn't seem like this is going to lead. This is not going to help me reach wisdom. This is somebody else's ox stuck in somebody else's alley in a place that I'm not trying to reach. So there you go. But also exposing the sort of limitations of our outlook when we close our outlook, rather than, as Taoism continuously, repetitively, endlessly tries to tell us, is to say, let go of all that. Open your minds, see the world as it is, and then act according to nature, not according to our desires, our predispositions, our training, or anything else, but try and see the world as nature. See what's easy. Nature always does the easy thing. It avoids the problem. Water rolls downhill, classically. And if you do that, then you'll start feeling enlightenment. Then you'll start moving through the world more easily. So, Taoist parable for today, it's often a horse that's stuck in the alley. Sometimes it's an ox. Different versions of the people who come along. Sometimes it's people trying to run under the legs, but the core message is simply these two. Thank you very much.